I love wine. Look.
You love wine. I love wine too.
How I got started in comedy, I was about a year away from graduating and I realised I had no transferable skills whatsoever. I was just shite at everything. I'd done an economics degree, I had a year left of it, but I realised I hated it, I was terrible at it, and I have a penchant to fuck up every basic task I'm given. So I thought, what are my skills? And I was like, I can tell jokes, tell a story, and I can articulate myself well. Can you make money out of that? And I was like, stand-up comedy people do that, don't they? How it makes me feel on stage, getting up on stage now, it's a combination sort of, both of sheer horror and nerves, and also just a maligned resentment and apathy, because even now you still get nerves to some degree, but when you've done it for so long, and any comedian that's worth their weight in salt will have had a bad gig. Once you've gotten over a bad gig and had a bad gig, there's also part of like, I've got all these notes, I should have been revising them all day, but like, instead what I was doing was just sitting on my phone, messing around on Facebook and Tinder, just because I've seen the jokes before and I've gigged so many times. But at the end of the day, I love being up there, I love making people smile, I love making people laugh. That's why I got into it, and that's why I continue to do it. And it's good money for less work than an average job. Don't trip, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip is exactly what's going through my mind before I go on stage. Well, today's a bit awkward because it's the first time I've done like a full hour show in a proper club. I've done our shows, I've done one in a club down in London, I've done them in the Fringe, all around the country, the Edinburgh Fringe, Leicester Fringe, doing the Brighton Fringe later this year. And there, you're too busy trying to get people in because you're outside flying, so you're not really thinking about that. So you go straight on the show, and it goes as it does. But today, because I've got all my family in attendance, there's, I think, at last count, about 200 people who bought tickets. Just trying not to let the nerves get the better of us, keep myself relaxed, make sure I remember all my lines, and then I'm just confident I've got a big smile on my face when I go on stage.
Please put your hands together, welcome to the stage, Raul Kohli!
Hello! So, for those of you who don't know, my name is Raul. That's quite awkward for me as a Geordie, because historically there's only been one Geordie with the name Raul. Raul Mutt, as some of you know. And that's awkward not because I share my name and my birthplace with a serial killer. That's awkward because now, due to administrative errors and just the fact he's a confused bloke, Gaza keeps on showing up at my house with a chicken, a fishing rod and a crate of beer. I'm getting this recorded for DVD and to sell online. It's just going to be a bunch of obscure Geordie references that nobody outside of the NE7 area is going to get. But I'm from Newcastle, so of course I'm going to talk about it, aren't I, ladies and gentlemen? I grew up on the corner of Balmoral Terrace and 2nd Avenue. A few years from the East End in the house. I'll be honest, I didn't really enjoy my childhood. No, it was a very white area, and as a result, it was a very racist area, and it was quite hard for me. People used to come up to me, throw the most overused, boring, unoriginal racist stereotypes my way. People would come up to me and be like, "Oh, Raul, you're Asian, I bet you own a corner shop." I'd say, "Hey, you can't make those assumptions. Just because I'm Asian, I own a corner shop. That is racist. Now take your mum's paper, take your Mars bar, get the fuck out my corner shop." It's genuinely what I do, ladies and gentlemen. Run a corner shop. A lot of critics, they say that joke's hack. They say it's hack. One critic once wrote about it. This was a joke that was often used in the 70s by club comics with very racist undertones. And just because we act using it now as Asian, I don't think it gets rid of those racial undertones. Says the white middle-class woman to the brown man. Fair enough, you fight the oppression, Tabitha. Good for you. But what am I meant to do? I know that corner shop. It was my life as a kid. And comics often say to us, other comics will say, "Well, what did your dad do before he owned a corner shop? Surely he had to save up and buy that corner shop." But in terms of escaping stereotype, his previous forms of employment don't really help, because my dad used to be a bus driver. So there's no real moving forward with escaping stereotypes there. But yeah, the corner shop was my life. My dad used to leave us on the shop, on my own, on the till when I was 5. You can't really do that with buses. And I grew up there, I met so many crazy, wonderful characters there that, of course, I'm going to tell you about it. I had one guy come in, and he tried to shoplift, just by taking the things he was going to nick to the till and tell us I wasn't charging for them. He just came in, grabbed an 8-pack of Stella, walked up the till and went, I'm just going to take these home and you're not going to charge us, I read. Like a shit Geordie Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, it's full of wonderful people. Another guy once genuinely sexually assaulted me when trying to shoplift from us. Genuinely, I was in the shop, I was working, I was on my own. This homeless man comes in, tries to nick a bottle of cider, Frosty Jacks if you're interested. I seen him. I ran over, I grabbed the bottle of Frosty Jacks out his hand. As I was holding the bottle of Frosty Jacks, this homeless man just looked at me and went, have you got a big cock? Reached over, bang, grabbed the thing. And I looked at this homeless man with sheer horror in my face. And he looked back at me with sheer disappointment to suggest he'd answered his own question. Well, you know, that corner shop was my life. And the thing is, for that critic to say, oh, that's a racist joke. Like, do you really think that's what Asian people give a fuck about? I've been the victim of racism. I haven't been let into certain places because of the colour of my skin. I've been shouted at in the street because of the colour of my skin. I've been kicked to fuck because of the colour of my skin. But not once has a racist come up to me in the street and gone, hey, you bloody immigrants! Coming here with your entrepreneurial spirit, fuck off! That has never happened. But I don't mind that stereotype because it's based on a truth, especially for me. The only stereotype I still hate to this day is that one, all Asians have a bomb in their bag. All Asians have a bomb in their bag. Because I think that stereotype is where discrimination arises. That's where you guys can physically get away with things I can't. Like running for your train when you're late. I don't really understand train security to begin with anyway, right? Train security makes no sense because you get on the train, don't you, and they always make that announcement. Good evening, this is the 1251 to Newcastle. If you do see any unattended objects or anything of suspicion, please warn a member of staff straight away. But what are you meant to do? You're just meant to grab the train inspector and be like, I don't know if you've realised, mate, but I've just seen the luggage rack. There's 9 of the fuckers on there. Just wouldn't make any sense. And that stereotype that all Asians have a bomb in their bag, I think that stereotype, it's racist, it's ignorant, and at times it's stupid. Because for all you know, I could have a bomb in my shoe, then you'd be fucked. Thinking about that, that's a bit like terrorism for hipsters, isn't it? Like you could just picture 2 ISIS insurgents in a cave in Syria somewhere being like, oh, Abdul, you're going to use a rucksack on your suicide bombing? Oh my God, bro, that is so last year. You're such a bloody virgin. You're going to have to go to heaven and fuck yourself 72 times. Because that's just the kind of banter I imagine ISIS would have on a day off. I find ISIS quite interesting, and when I say interesting, I mean interesting, not inspiring. I'm interested in ISIS in the same way I'm interested in Game of Thrones. I watch Game of Thrones, I follow Game of Thrones. I'm not calling up my mates on the night time being like, yeah, do you fancy playing Rapey Dragons tonight? I'm just interested in it. I'm interested because it come out of nowhere, and I think the best way I can describe terrorism at the minute is through the analogy of the Premier League. Bear with me. Because the Premier League, like terrorism, women aren't allowed to play. The Premier League, like terrorism, homosexuals don't enter to profess their sexuality while playing. And the Premier League, like terrorism, used to have 2 main teams. Arsenal / the Taliban, who lost their status after a series of their best terrorists joining better paid networks. There was also Man United / Al Qaeda, who lost their status after their cult-like leader, universally hated by all non-supporters, Alex Ferguson / Osama bin Laden, left. Then out of nowhere came Manchester City / ISIS with all of the money in the world to dominate the Premier League. And the beauty of this analogy, ladies and gentlemen, lies in the fact that just like Manchester City, ISIS acquire most of their funding from an Abu Dhabi royal family as well. See, I fucking hate it when that happens, when the audience don't really laugh, but then clap. Because what you're saying there is that was very clever, but not funny. Move on, bastard. But the Middle East, it is fucked right now, isn't it? It's completely fucked, right? Because you got us, the West. We hate ISIS. We're trying to fight ISIS. We also hate the Syrian government, but they're fighting ISIS, so we'll let them slide. We've also historically hated Iran, Lebanon, and Hezbollah, but they're backing the Syrian government who are fighting ISIS, so we'll let them slide. We're also aligned with the Kurds, who are fighting both the Syrian government and ISIS, and Turkey, who we're also aligned with. Then finally, we're aligned with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the Gulf states, who are backing Sunni Islamic rebel groups such as ISIS. And with all these different factions fighting, all these unlikely alliances who've turned on each other, I just kind of feel like the entire of the Middle East must have literally just gone, yeah, that Game of Thrones looks good, let's play Rapey Dragons tonight. Because everyone in the Middle East obviously has a Geordie accent. But I ask people, why is the Middle East so fucked? And I think maybe it's because we've been selling the Middle East weapons for the best part of 50 years. And ask people why we've been selling them weapons. And people say, oh, economic growth. But then instead of weapons, why not just sell the same shit we've been selling in the West? Like subprime mortgages? Like, it's quite hard to plan a jihad if you're worrying about your house getting repossessed. Especially if that then has a knock-on effect, causes a global recession, which causes austerity-driven public service cuts. Oi, Ahmed, where you going? Blow up the local leisure centre. No, you're not, mate. Government closed it down. Go home. Problem solved. Another thing I don't really understand is why we keep selling the Middle East World Cups as well as weapons. Like, Qatar have enslaved people and they can afford to buy the FIFA 16 World Cup. I haven't enslaved anybody. I can't even afford to buy FIFA 16, the game. Like, let alone have Cristiano Ronaldo around for a game of heads and balls. They were saying that if we did have it in my backyard, we could at the very least have it in summer. I mean, it's not big enough, so we'd have to, like, perhaps occupy the neighbour's yard, but that's fine. He can just play along. He can just be Palestine. Ooh, you're not going to like these next jokes, ladies and gentlemen. Because the Israel-Palestine conflict, or as I like to call it, homes under the hammer forever. The Israel-Palestine conflict, or as I like to call it, Neighbours from Hell, the geopolitical edition. The Israel-Palestine conflict, it's been in the news a lot recently. The government have recently tried to stop people from boycotting Israel. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily believe in a boycott of Israel, but I don't know how you ban a boycott. I think that's quite cheeky, because that's forcing people to spend money on something. And I just think that's really cheeky of the government. Like, the government don't spend anything on Newcastle City Council, yet they want me to spend money on the Israeli central government. Like, hang about, Dave. First off, you get the #1 bus running on time, and then I'll see if I need any olive oil from Tel Aviv. And I do understand the government's position to some extent, because I think people do boycott Israel over stupid reasons. Like, when I was at the Fringe last year, there was a ballet troupe that had acquired some funding. Not all of the funding, some funding from the Israeli central government. And as a result, people were outside protesting, and this poor ballet troupe had to cancel their show. Now, there's a lot of reasons you can protest Israel, but contemporary dance is not fucking one of them. And that's not social justice either. You haven't made any kid in the Gaza Strip's life better because you stopped 15 kids from Bethlehem doing a fucking pirouette. That is not how social justice works, but it's all right, because I think I have the solution for peace between Israel and Palestine. I think we'll only get peace when my mate shows up with a chicken, a fishing rod, a crate of beer and goes, yeah, Israel, it doesn't belong to you. Yeah, Palestine, it doesn't belong to you. It's Gaza Strip, it's got me fucking name on it. But that's the thing, a lot of people, some people, they don't like my comedy. They say it's too political. And that's fair enough. You're entitled to your own enjoyment. A lot of my friends, they enjoy the Kardashians, for example. My newsfeed blew up earlier this year with a video of the Kardashians, right? Now, it was a weird video, I'll give you that. It wasn't sex tape weird, but it was weird nevertheless, right? But people were really over-exaggerating. And what happened in the video was the Kardashians ran on treadmills and sang really out of tune and really out of sync, wishing their mother a happy birthday. And people exaggerated this. They were on Facebook like, oh, it's so shocking. Oh, it's so shocking. Oh, it's the most shocking thing I've ever seen. Really? In 2015, after everything that has happened, the Kardashians on treadmills is the most shocking video you've seen of a Middle Eastern family running. Dark, innit? Dark. But a good comedian draws attention to the truth, doesn't necessarily endorse it. When the refugee crisis first kicked off, David Cameron wanted to keep refugees out. Now, whether you want refugees in or out, that's none of my business. But if you're a politician and you go for a policy, how are you going to do that? That's what I want to know. And David Cameron was going to keep refugees out by building a £7 million fence. A £7 million fence. These people have escaped death, rape, torture, ISIS, smuggle themselves in the boots of cars and over stormy seas just to get to Calais, and you think they're going to get deterred by a fucking fence. This is what happens when your Prime Minister spends too much of his youth fox hunting instead of fence hopping. What a fucking tit. But it is a strange one. We've had some really weird fuckers run this country. I mean, David Cameron, as well as being a fucking tatey, he also allegedly fucked a pig. And that's not a good look, never mind if you're working in McDonald's, never mind if you run the country. And a lot of the press, they came out to his defence when this happened. They came out and they defended him. And in fairness, they defended him because there were allegations. Nobody really knows if they were true, and that's fair enough. But the Telegraph ran a strange headline. They ran the headline, "Whether David Cameron had sexual relations with a pig or not, it doesn't matter. We've all done stupid things when we were kids." But fuck a pig! Maybe in your generation, mate, but if that happened in my generation, that Snapchat would get leaked in a minute. But we have had some weird fuckers run this country, haven't we? Before him, it was Tony Blair. I was reading an interview with Tony Blair the other day where he said he dabbled in stand-up comedy before he became Prime Minister. When he was at university, he dabbled in stand-up comedy. Which reminds me of in my uni days when I dabbled in being a fucking war criminal. That was good times. Second year. £1 VKs, Osborne Road bar crawls and war crimes. It was lovely. It was lovely. Gordon Brown, on the other hand, he's widely regarded by academics and economists as one of the best prime ministers we ever had. He's widely regarded as somebody who single-handedly saved the UK economy, but the UK electorate don't really like them, do they? One part because he was left to deal with the fallout of the financial crisis of 2008. Another reason was because he wasn't very charismatic and he had one eye, and that turned off a lot of people. I think what would have helped is if instead of saying his policies as uncharismatically as he did, is if instead he sang them in a really high-pitched, auto-tuned voice while occasionally shouting 1738, because that worked for Fetty Wap, and he's only got one eye. But we have had some fucked up people run this country, and they put us in far more danger than they've ever taken us from. And I think the world would be a safer place if we let women in the frontline military. But we don't, because women might have periods on the front line, and that might distract the male soldiers. I don't know, but I think if you're scared of blood, the army's probably not for you, is it? And there's a lot of aspects in life where I think women don't get the full access and the full liberty that men get, and I think men should talk about it as well, because on the flip side, sometimes it affects men. Like, men aren't allowed to be emotional, really, by society standards. Another thing is men aren't allowed to have a handbag, which really annoys me. I'd love to run around with a handbag, because, well, no, if I could run around with a handbag, maybe then I could run for my fucking train when I'm late. See, I talk about racial discrimination, but in fairness, I don't really get it, at least not in this country anymore. The last time I was racially abused, I was in America, and I got called the N-word, which is offensive, right? But I've never been called that before, so more than anything, I was just confused. And the only thing I could think to splutter out was, "You're shit at being racist, mate," and I ran away. I mean, I wasn't offended, but that is the last time I asked Hulk Hogan for an autograph. People wonder what Hulk Hogan's going to do now that he's been done for racial abuse and he's never been allowed to wrestle again. I personally think he's got a perfect CV to join the American police force. Too dark? Too dark? Just like the excuse the American police put on statements when they've shot an unarmed man. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. That's all I'm saying. It won't happen to me anyway. I don't live in America. Yay! A good comedian draws attention to the truth but doesn't necessarily endorse it. That's what I'm saying. But in this country, what with the rise of UKIP, racism sort of shifted away from Asians towards Eastern Europeans. Have we got any Eastern Europeans in? Fuck me, UKIP are doing well. Keeping them out of everything. Because I don't agree with UKIP, right? But I can't lie to you and say I don't enjoy their presence, because it's a get out of jail free card for me. Because now when I'm on the streets and people are like, "Oi, you lot, taking all the jobs," I'm like, "I didn't take your job, that was Jacob. Jacob took your job." I read not too long ago, actually, that Nick Griffin, former leader of the BNP, called UKIP a racist party. Nick Griffin, former leader of the BNP, calling UKIP a racist party. Talk about the pot calling the kettle a packy. I first realised that actually racism had shifted away from Asians towards Eastern Europeans when I first caught two of my own cousins being racist about Eastern Europeans. We were on a flight back from Madrid 2 years ago, and 4 Romanians got on our plane. Now, bless them, they weren't doing anything wrong, but my 2 cousins started being really racist about them. Now, it was weird watching brown people be racist about white people, but it was racism, make no mistake. And the thing is, my 2 cousins have strong Cockney accents, so it really sounded the part as well. My first cousin, he was there, and he was like, "Oh my bloody God, Renji, you seen this?" White people coming to take the jobs you already took off the other white people. I bloody know, Kumar. At least we brought curry to help us integrate. You had goulash, it's fucking wank. And it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. But this is what some of you won't realise, is that some of the worst racism is between ethnic minorities. Indians and Pakistanis, for example, hate each other. Now, I'm Indian, which in hindsight makes that pot calling the kettle a Paki joke absolutely disgusting. But that's fine, because as we all know, political correctness only applies to you honky motherfuckers. Jason, ladies and gentlemen. But the thing is, I've got no problem with Pakistanis. I've got loads of Pakistani mates. Becky Rizwan's my best pal. But it's mainly amongst the older generation that Indians and Pakistanis hate each other. But a lot of people don't realise this. Racists don't realise it either. This created my favourite memory ever. I was walking down Northumberland Street, right? I was with my granddad at the time and I was 5. As we passed the McDonald's, there was this chav stood there, this chava, this big Raji. And as we passed, this Raji hocked up some phlegm, spat it out at my feet and went, "I fucking hate Pakis." Now I shit myself. I was only 5, I didn't know what to do. But without missing a step, my granddad dragged us along by the arm, turned to this racist and went, "You hate Pakis! Not as much as me, bastard!" and walked off. Now, my granddad has that accent, the one that sounds more like a racist impersonation than an actual accent. Some of the more astute among you may have noted he sounds a lot like Abdul the terrorist at the start of the show who was going to do a suicide bombing, but that's genuinely his accent. My dad, on the other hand, he has this beautiful accent, right? It's a hybrid between Geordie and Indian. And he's only interested in things that are to do with being a Geordie and being an Indian. So he'll often come out with strange things in his strange accent, and I find it class. Because he'd be there and he'd be like, "How Rahul? Who do you think is the bigger legend? Sachin Tendulkar or Alan Shearer?" Alan Shearer, Dad, all day. And he goes, "Wow, that is Raj." What's so Raj about that, Dad? You've always known I preferred football to cricket. "No, it's your Uncle Raj. He's at the door. Go let him in." You can have a lot of fun with our accent and the words we use. You know what I reckon? Like, there's so much scope for jokes and stuff like that. Like when people ask me if I know the Chinese political dissident Ai Weiwei, I say, "Wei Ai Weiwei me." But language is an interesting thing, isn't it? Language is a very interesting thing, and it's never been more prevalent than today because there's a lot of issues over freedom of speech and political correctness. Some people, for example, don't like the fact that I use the word Paki in the joke I do prior. But I think it's fine because in the context of the joke, I'm referring it to somebody who's used that as a racial insult. I'm not using it to insult anyone else, but people say, "Oh, it's a contextless word." It's not. No word is contextless, because once you take it out of its context, it's not a word. That's just how language works. And I think that's the great failure of political correctness. Because political correctness has led to an environment where we now value a word over an opinion. Sometimes we even value a word over an action. I'll give you an example. If I, as an entertainer, went on the stage on the BBC and cracked a joke about fucking children, the BBC would probably stop me. But the BBC never stopped entertainers actually fucking children. That is a terrible state of affairs. And the problem is people try and solve all these issues with petitions, and you've got to calm down. You can't solve everything with a petition. Just change the channel. And if it's not trying to ban some artists they don't like, it's something else. I get petitions to myself all the time. I get them in my inbox. It's like, "Sign this petition to end cancer." That's not how medicine works. sign this petition, get rid of the government. That's not how modern democracy works. I didn't vote for them either, but you can't just go around overthrowing governments you don't like. That's called a military coup, and I left that behind at university. And it's a strange one, and I think it's great. It's great if you want to go and challenge the injustice and the flaws of the world around you, but I think it's more important to start with yourself. Michael Jackson had it right. You start with the man in the mirror. That's why I do a little bit on sexism, because I went to an old boys' school. I grew up in Biker. I grew up to be quite a sexist, and I realised I was sexist, and I realised the dangers of sexism when I came across Malala Yousafzai. For those of you who don't know, Malala Yousafzai won the Nobel Peace Prize last year. She blogged against the Taliban in her region of Pakistan, trying to get herself and all girls in her region access to education. She even got the Taliban even came on her bus and shot her in the head because of what she did. Now, luckily, she has survived, otherwise that would be a very dark way to start a joke, even by my standards. She did survive. She lives in Birmingham now, and I think everybody unanimously agreed she was a worthwhile winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. Everybody, of course, except Kanye West, who no doubt thought Beyoncé should have won that award as well. Kanye West recently headlined Glastonbury, and I think the only person who enjoyed his headline set was Rose West, because it was at that point she realised she was no longer the most hated West in Britain. But then again, Kanye did name his children Northwest and Saint West, so it's debatable who committed the bigger crimes to children. There's a lot of sexism in nightclubs. Now, I've worked in a nightclub all my life because I love drinking. Give me a cheer if you're drinking tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic. I love drinking. I'll be honest, I used to prefer smoking weed. I used to smoke so much weed on my estate, they gave me the nickname Wacky Packy. But I gave up. Well, I didn't give up, but I cut down my intake of smoking weed because I found it was sending us crazy over things that did not directly affect my life. The last time I was really, really high, I was in America, I was in LA, and if you haven't been there, their strains of weed are a lot stronger than ours, and that shit sent me crazy. I found myself crying for 2 hours. 2 hours, because I was so high, I realised that if colourblind people only confuse red and green, well, that means they spend the entire of their lives seeing watermelons inside out. I cried for 2 hours over that. America's a strange country. You think because it's English speaking, because it's in the West, it'll be just like the UK, but it's not. It's very different, and it's more of a culture shock than you'll anticipate. One reason is the racism. This is a country that has contemplated banning Muslims and not contemplated banning guns, hasn't banned guns, but has banned Kinder eggs. Weird country. And the racism is bad there, even in the 60s, right, which isn't that long ago. They used to make black people sit on the back of the bus. Now, as well as being morally reprehensible, it lacks all logic, because why did they make black people sit on the back of the bus? To reclaim their humanity. But how can you reclaim somebody's humanity by making them sit on the back of the bus? Everybody knows that's where the cool kids sit. And the other one is the homophobia. Now, people are homophobic in this country, but nobody's really that arsed, no pun intended. However, in the States, there really are. I was in a bar in Texas before they legalised gay marriage federally, and I got talking to this Texan, and it was just small talk, the standard you expect. What's your name? Where you're from? You're not a terrorist, are you? Just the basics. But then out of nowhere, he came out with this little nugget. I think 3 things are going to bring the apocalypse. Now, I don't think the apocalypse is really small talk, but it sounded like it was going somewhere interesting, so I let him crack on. I said, all right, what's that, mate? He said, I think the acceptance of abortion, the acceptance of homosexuality, and the legalization of Kinder eggs. I was like, whatever. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not homophobic in any way, shape, or form, but I'm not really a social justice warrior. I'm in a foreign country. I just want to avoid myself getting shot. I tried to move the conversation on, but he wouldn't have it. He stops and he goes, what do you think? Do you not think what those homosexuals do is unnatural? It's like, mate, I don't think I'm in any position to judge. I spend most nights fucking my right hand. I don't really, if I was gay, right, and people like sort of kept using that insult, right, I think you're going to bring the apocalypse, I think you're going to bring the apocalypse, I'd use it to my advantage. I'd just be like, I might bring the apocalypse if I hear one more out of you, bellend. I think that would be fantastic. The one thing I think that is similar to America regarding the UK is nightclub culture, and this was my original point. I wouldn't quite say nightclubs are sexist places, but there's something a bit weird about them, right? The nightclub is the only place I've ever seen a man try and chat up a woman through the medium of interpretive dance. Because you get them shy ones, don't you? And they've got no social skills, they don't know how to talk to ladies, so just spend the entire night just sort of, if you imagine this as a lady, just kind of standing there going... But I suppose the shy ones are better than the bold ones, because the bold ones just walk up behind a woman they've never spoke to and with absolutely no shame just start doing this. But similarly, I find that strange because a nightclub is the only place I've ever seen a woman respond to being hit on like that by doing this. And I just find it strange that a nightclub is the only sort of social environment where that behaviour is accepted and even encouraged. Because I tried that in Nando's the other day and people really weren't as chilled. I'm just saying, ladies, some dodgy lads you've got to look out for. Some dodgy lads you've got to look out for. Like my mate Todd. I was out with him the other week and I got stung by a bee and my mate Todd said I was asking for it for wearing a bright yellow t-shirt. I said, fuck you, Todd. Nobody's ever asking for it just because of what they wear. Now, I like that joke. Evidently you didn't, judging by the awkward lack of laughter currently pervading the room, but I like that joke. Because it belittles a very serious debate, and that's the foundation of my comedy. But by that same logic, you could probably argue it belittles rape, which is something I would never, ever want to do. But as a man, I don't think I'm entitled to make that decision. So what's your name? Sarah, nice to meet you. I'm Raul. I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Not did you think it was funny, but was it acceptable? If you say yes, means it doesn't belittle rape, I can keep using it. If you say no, it means belittles rape, I'll never use it again, and I won't take the piss out of you regardless of the answer you give. Just yes or no, that's all I'm looking for.
It was okay.
Yes. So I keep using that joke. You see? Consent, it's that fucking easy. Nightclubs, strange place. And there's a lot of hip-hop in nightclubs now. I'm not really too bothered about that because I love hip-hop, me. I grew up in the 90s, in the heyday of hip-hop, when it was East Coast versus West Coast, Biggie versus Tupac. Being from Newcastle, of course, I'm East Coast for life. That's how I like my hip-hop, how I like my railway lines, East Coast. Hip-hop's not the same as it used to be. In the 90s, it's changed. Very progressive nowadays. You get a lot of gay rappers, a lot of female rappers of different ethnicities. Dwarves do very well in the rap game now. Everybody's little this or little that. It's very, very progressive. There's a big discussion in the minute in America about cultural appropriation. If you don't know what that is with regards to hip-hop, it's about white teenagers really enjoying hip-hop music in the club, really buying the singles. But when it comes to the struggle that hip-hop is inherently intertwined with, that of African-American struggle, people say they don't really show up for that. For example, the Black Lives Matter movement, and as a result, it's cultural appropriation. Now, I can't really comment on this, because it's not my culture that's getting appropriated. I mean, I wish my culture was getting appropriated. I wish I could rock up to House of Smith, any nightclub right now, there'd be 300 white kids just going wild to Bhangra, just like... That would make my fucking day. But unfortunately, we don't have that, so I'll have to settle for white girls wearing bindis and hippies doing yoga. Fine, I'll take what I can get. Hip-hop, it's good, but clubs are strange now, man. Like, I'm getting to that age, I'm only 24, and I feel old when I'm in a club now. I feel really old. And it's horrible, like, because I go to clubs now, and the trends have changed. And I'm not down with the cool kids like I used to be. Like, you go to a club now and you see, like you good sir, you see a lot of kids wearing their tops down here, right? A lot of men wearing their tops down here. You go to a club now, more men have their cleavage on display than women. And that's quite confusing for me because I'm short. I'm only 5'8". I'm walking around the clubs and I'm like, oh, yo, that is a cracking pair of... That's a bloke, that's definitely a bloke. And my age is showing now, it really is. I don't get fucking social media to save my life. Right? I grew up in the age of MSN, but I don't get social media anymore. On Facebook, people just use it to post the most mundane, boring shit I've ever seen. People will be on Facebook like, had a few too many last night. Boss isn't going to be happy. Hashtag lol. I'm like, really? That's what makes you laugh out loud? Tom, you're 34? You've got a wife and kids? And you're bragging about your inability to consume alcohol responsibly. What happens if you have one too many times, Tom? Then you get fired and you can't provide for your wife and children. You won't be hashtag lolling anymore, will you? Women as well, not all women, but some women, obviously, they post stuff on Facebook like, I wish I had a boyfriend to keep us warm through the winter. I wish I had a boyfriend to keep us warm through the winter. It's like, no, love, you mean a cut. It's strange. My age is showing. And I think this is why I can understand racism, because it's a fear of change, and I'm starting to fear change in my old age, and everything's changing. In 6 months' time, we don't know if we're going to be part of the EU or not. Just because I'm a dick and I like to turn people against each other, give us a cheer if you're in. Give us a cheer if you're out. Woo, well, no, it's 2 years, but 1 year was very loud. I don't know. I don't really care either way, but I think if we are going to leave the EU, it's a bit harsh to have a referendum. Like, if you're going to dump somebody, just do it straight. Don't make them wait out in the cold, you know what I mean? Essentially, the EU have just received a text from us, babe, I think I need some time. I'm not sure. It might be me. It's probably you. I'm just not sure I'm happy with you seeing 27 other people, you slag. And then the EU have text back being like, I'm the slag. Since we've been together, you've let 600,000 Polish men come inside you. So there's on both sides. Fear of change, I understand. It's why I understand racism. It's why I understand organisations such as the EDL. And EDL supporters, they keep telling me, I'm not a racist. Right? I'm not a racist. I don't think you are an inherently bad person. I just think the Muslim religion is a bad one, and you, as a practicing Muslim, will have picked up 1 or 2 false beliefs and immoral beliefs as a result. And I say, this is why it is racist, because I've got fuck all to do with Islam. I'm not a practicing Muslim. I don't pray to the east. I just pray for the northeast. I could give a fuck about Sharia law. I'm just after Shira's law. The only angel I know stands outside a Gateshead and she looks like a sideways crashed plane. I'm not Muslim. So I think that Islamophobia is racism. And EDL supporters always say stuff like, Muslims are trying to steal Christmas. I'm like, nah, I've seen a documentary on this. That's the Grinch you're thinking of. But before I get into me business about the EDL and about Islamophobia, let me first give you a bit of background on my relationship with Muslims and my relationship with Islam, because you see, I knew quite a lot of racists growing up, to be honest. I always would. And in my corner shop, I had one racist. He used to come and he was cracking. Still a good friend today. He used to make racist comments. He thought he was being very subtle, but he wasn't. He'd come and he'd be like, you know what it is, Raul? This country used to be great. Like the bread shelf. It was all white. But then the hippies and the liberals said we had to live alongside the brown bread. And now what do you got? This mongrel, this 50-50, best of both. Yeah, I tell you, Raul, one day we'll end up like the chocolate shelf with white chocolate as the minority. But of course, I don't mean that about you, Raul. I mean that about the packies and that. At which point my granddad heard, came out and gave him his shopping for free. But I grew up in a Hindu household. And for those of you that don't know, Hindus have been warring with Muslims since long before the West even knew what a Muslim was. My granddad, as well as hating Pakistanis, he was quite Islamophobic as well. And I'll be honest, it rubbed off on me. But he was always Islamophobic in Hindi. And as a result, I don't speak Hindi. The Hindi word for Muslim is Musulman. So now, as opposed to being Islamophobic, I've just got this stranger version of bodybuilders. Hate the fuckers, hate the gym, everything to do with it. I've always wanted to do a set on religion, but I don't think I can, really. Because the non-Christian, I come on, take the piss out of Christianity. That seems racist, doesn't it? But at the same time, they're the jokes we know, don't we? I mean, the stories we know, sorry. We know about Noah's Ark. We know about Jesus in the Gospel. We know about Adam and Eve and Exodus. And similarly, as a Hindu, I can't really come on stage and be like, guys, you seen in chapter 6 of the Holy Gita, when Ram gets Hanuman, to the monkey who can fire a bow and arrow to help rescue his wife Sita from the ten-headed demon Ravan. Because you see, you have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. It does not work. But I think people often say, religion causes people to do bad things. I don't think it can ever be just religion alone. It can be a factor. I think it's reductionist to say that it's just religion that causes people to do bad things. Because religion causes you to do stupid things, right? Things that don't really change your personality inherently. But it doesn't completely make you a terrible or a completely good person. I'll give you an example, right? My mate called us up earlier this year. And he went, oh, Raul, what you doing this weekend? Do you want to have a few beers, maybe go watch the football? I said, no, I can't. I've got to go watch my baby nephew get his head shaved so he can get into heaven. Thought that was strange, but it's called a munan. It happens to every Hindu baby when they turn 1. It's the equivalent of a baptism. I thought maybe that's just a Hindu thing. Then I thought a bit further about it, and then I realised, no, expands to Christianity as well, doesn't it? Oh, what are you doing this weekend, mate? You fancy a few beers, maybe going to watch a football? No, I can't, mate. I've got to go watch my baby nephew get waterboarded so he can get into heaven. And then I thought it expands beyond that, doesn't it? It expands to all religions, doesn't it? The other 2 Abrahamic religions, Islam and Judaism. Oh, what are you doing this weekend, mate? Do you fancy a few beers? Maybe go watch a football. No, I can't, mate. I've got to watch my baby nephew get his foreskin chopped off so he can get into heaven. It expands to all religions. And this is the thing, I converted. I think religion makes sense, personally. I really think it does. I don't personally believe in any religion, but I think it makes sense. Because sometimes life is so complicated, so hard to navigate. You think the universe is sending you signs. Like, I went to the same French restaurant 3 times in 1 week because I thought that French restaurant, I thought God was sending me a sign through the menu trying to get me to convert to Islam and become an F1 driver. But apparently, that's not what a la carte means at all. I converted to Buddhism not too long ago because Buddhism's the only religion where you can be a Buddhist but pray to every god that ever existed, which I think is just a safe way of hedging me bets. And also, the Thai owners of Leicester City Football Club got Buddhist monks to pray for their club, so clearly the fucker works. There's proven, tried and tested results there. But Buddhism's full of shit, like most religions. Well, it's got some good points, but it's full of shit like most religions. Buddha, for example, promotes restraint. Restraint primarily with the 7 sins. Restraint with lust, restraint with greed, restraint with gluttony. Hang about. Restraint with gluttony. Says you, Buddha, you fat fuck. The only god who weighs over 300 pounds. Who ate all the pies, Buddha? Because judging from the pictures, it definitely wasn't Jesus. Bit harder to make an educated guess about Allah. That always makes the room tense, and I don't know why. Because I'm not saying it's a good thing, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just saying within the Muslim religion, you're not allowed to draw the deities or prophets. It's just a thing. However, what I'm about to do next is incredibly offensive, so strap yourselves in, because in tribute to the Charlie Hebdo victims, I've depicted my own picture of the great Muslim Muhammad. Hear that? That's the sound of everybody's sphincters tensing like a motherfucker. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Muslim Muhammad. Not trying to get us all killed, don't you worry. There is some fucking thought gone into this. Well, that's the thing, like, you know what, I'd defend to the right you're deaf to do that, but I personally wouldn't do it myself because, in my opinion, I think Muslims get it hard enough in this country as it is. And I really think they do. And I don't agree with this rhetoric that we should ban Muslims. I really don't agree that we should ban Muslims. We unequivocally cannot ban Muslims because I know a Muslim and he sells me weed and nobody sells better bags than him. Now, I know that's not a ringing endorsement. I know a Muslim is a criminal. However, the police are facing frontline service cuts like never before. They do not have the time to deal with me and Specky Rizwan looking shifty in his souped-up Suzuki Swift. Parked up outside the Dixie Chicken on the West Road. Smoking weed, listening to Bangla remixes of Fetty Wap. Don't need to deal with that. And, you know, we're not harming anybody. Specky Rizwan's shitting it because he's got to get to mosque in 20 minutes, and if his dad clocks his high, he's going to beat the fuck out of him. I'm shitting it because I've got to get to the corner shop in 20 minutes, and if my dad clocks I'm high, he's going to beat the fuck out of me. Our white Geordie friend Andy, he's in the back, he's shitting it because he's got to get home for 20 minutes for his Sunday roast, and if his mum clocks he's high, she'll batter him, not because he's high, just because she's Geordie. We're not that different, really, are we? Specky Rizwan, if you don't know, he's a very good friend. Mum, you're in here, aren't you? Yeah. You know Specky Rizwan, he's a good lad, isn't he? But don't tell him I told you he sells weed because he'll kick off at us for snitching. But Specky Rizwan, he's all right. He's my drug dealer. He's a nice guy. He has this beautiful accent. It's a hybrid between Geordie, Indian. It's like my dad's, but there's also a hint of Afro-Caribbean in there as well, which is strange. You walk around like, Wagwan, bro. I got the touch crumble in it, bro. Smoking the puckers, bro. And David Cameron has the goal to say multiculturalism has failed. That is fucking beautiful. And you know, Specky Rizwan is no jihadist either. He spent too much on that spoiler to be crashing that into a car and blowing it up, I'll tell you right now. Specky Rizwan, he's a good guy. That's the problem with America as well, though, like, because America want to ban guns, but not Muslims. This is the thing, if you send Specky Rizwan round my house and I owe him 100 quid, he's no danger. He's not going to do fuck all. I'll chin him, right? But if you send him round with a gun and he starts pistol whipping me, shouting like, respect Specky Rizwan! Respect Specky Rizwan! Before I make you touch crumble banchot, then all of a sudden, we have a problem. But I changed my mind on the EDL. I changed my mind on Islamophobia because I came across an EDL rally in Newcastle about a year and a half ago now. Some of you may have seen it. It was the biggest EDL rally that's ever held in the UK. And that's when I changed my mind because I realised these people just aren't the brightest bulb in the box. And they're just like me. They're not the sharpest. No, sorry, I'm fucking sharp. They're not. They're afraid of change, you see. They're afraid of change. And that's just like me. They're afraid of change and they're just not the brightest bulbs in the box. They're understandably going to react like that. And I've seen one guy holding up a sign saying what I can only assume to have meant, never submit to Islam! Except he got the spelling wrong and it ended up saying, never submit to Aslan. Which I couldn't agree more with. If you want to submit to anyone, be it not a talking fictional lion. And another guy, he'll be in my heart forever, right? He is one of my favourite people in the whole wide world. He got the 3-letter chant wrong. It's meant to be, hey, EDL, hey, EDL. He was walking around, can in hand, going, LED, LED. Which, ironically enough, is the brightest bulb in the box. And as I saw this racist, that's when I had my epiphany, because I was laughing at him. I was laughing at him for fucking up a simple 3-letter chant. And he saw us, he caught me laughing at him, we made eye contact. He looked over the police barricade and he shouted, fuck off back to Pakistan. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is when I had my epiphany. Because I'll be honest with you, right? I'm a 24-year-old lad. I've been out on the streets, I've been drunk, disorderly, I've got myself in a few fights. I'm not going to lie to you, I've made my mistakes. Granted, they weren't born out of racism, but the ends of violence don't justify the means, regardless of what they are. And that's when I realised, you know what? There's a bit of me in this guy. I looked a bit closer and I thought, you know what? There definitely is a bit of me in this guy. So I walked up to this EDL member. I walked up to this racist man. I walked up to this man who just told me to fuck off back to Pakistan. And I said, oh, for fuck's sake, Grandad, what are you doing? I guess if there's anything to take home from this show, ladies and gentlemen, it's that even racism is shared amongst races. The EDL, ISIS, they'll have you under the same sort of thing that it's a clash of civilizations. It's West against East. It's Muslims against Christians. It's not, right? Fucking first off, that neglects the complexity of the world. I'm Hindu. I want fucking in this. Don't exclude people. It's not just you two guys, right? But on top of that, it's bollocks. Me, Specky Rizwan, Andy, loads of my pals, we run around West Road smoking zoots all day. Different cultures, different classes, we get on just fine because shared humanity is what made you, ladies and gentlemen, right? You're all our friends. You came here, the only reason you're alive, you had a 1 in 16 trillion chance of being born, right? But the only reason you're alive is because your parents found shared humanity before you. Before them, their parents found shared humanity before them, and so on until the dawn of time. And shared humanity is what makes us, because for every one Muslim terrorist there's 100 who run to the scene and try and defend the injured and put themselves in the way of the bullets, like in Tunisia. For every paedophile there's 100 people who raise their children magnificently, just like you wonderful people who came to my show. And for every shit comedy show you see, there's that one gem at 8:30 p.m. on Monday, the 29th of February at the Stand. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Newcastle Brown Mail. Thank you very much. Have a good night.